The worst deaths in every earthquake. The ground is the one thing people do not expect to move. Every structure built by human civilization assumes the ground beneath it will remain still. Roads, foundations, pipelines, dams, cities, all of it is built on the assumption of a stable surface. An earthquake removes that assumption in seconds. The shaking lasts between 10 and 60 seconds in most cases. The deaths that follow can continue for days, weeks, and months as fires spread, tsunamis arrive, buildings trap survivors without rescue, and disease moves through populations left without clean water or shelter. The earthquakes in this video did not kill with their shaking alone. They killed with everything the shaking set in motion. These are the worst deaths in every earthquake. Shaanxi Earthquake, China, 1556. On January 23, 1556, an earthquake struck Shaanxi province in central China. The estimated magnitude was 8.0. It struck at approximately 5:00 a.m. when the population was asleep. The death toll from the Shaanxi earthquake is estimated at 830,000 people. It is the deadliest earthquake in recorded human history. More people died in this single event than in any other seismic event ever documented. The reasons for the catastrophic death toll are structural and geographic. The population of Shaanxi province in 1556 lived primarily in Yaodong, cave dwellings carved directly into the loess cliffs that characterize the region's landscape. Loess is a type of compressed sediment, soft enough to carve but stable in normal conditions. When the earthquake struck, the loess cliffs collapsed. The cave dwellings carved into them collapsed with the cliffs. Entire communities living inside the hillsides were buried simultaneously as the ground moved beneath them at 5:00 in the morning while they slept. Survivors described the ground rippling like water. Trees and houses were swallowed into fissures that opened across the landscape. Rivers changed course. Mountains shifted. The shaking lasted approximately 4 minutes, longer than most earthquakes. In those 4 minutes, an estimated 97 counties across Shaanxi, Shanxi, Henan, and Gansu provinces were affected. The zone of destruction covered an area of approximately 520 miles in all directions from the epicenter. 830,000 people in 4 minutes at 5:00 in the morning while they slept. San Francisco earthquake, California, 1906. On April 18, 1906 at 5:12 a.m., a magnitude 7.9 earthquake struck San Francisco, California along the San Andreas Fault. The shaking lasted approximately 45 to 60 seconds. The earthquake itself was catastrophic. What followed it was worse. The earthquake ruptured gas mains, water mains, and electrical infrastructure across the city simultaneously. Fires ignited in multiple locations within minutes of the shaking. The rupture of the water mains meant that the fire department had no water pressure to fight them. For 3 days, San Francisco burned. The fires destroyed approximately 28,000 buildings across 490 city blocks. The earthquake and the fires combined killed an estimated 3,000 people, though modern historical analysis suggests the actual number may have been significantly higher, with official figures deliberately suppressed to minimize the perception of damage and protect the city's economic interests. Among the specific deaths documented in the immediate aftermath, a woman named Harriet Quinn was killed in her home when the chimney of her house collapsed inward during the shaking. Her neighbor survived the earthquake, only to die in the fire that consumed his street 3 hours later. A man named Alfred Hertz, who had been scheduled to conduct a concert that evening, survived the earthquake and spent the following days helping to organize relief efforts among the ruins of the city he had arrived in only days before. The earthquake exposed the inadequacy of the city's infrastructure. Water mains had been installed without the flexible joints that could accommodate ground movement. The fire department's cisterns had not been maintained. The city had been warned about its vulnerability to earthquake damage by engineers who had inspected the infrastructure years before the earthquake. The warnings had not been acted upon. 3,000 people died. The city was rebuilt. The flexible water main joints were installed. The cisterns were repaired. It took the deaths to produce the changes the engineers had recommended years before they occurred. Tangshan earthquake, China, 1976. On July 28, 1976, at 3:42 a.m., A magnitude 7.6 earthquake struck the industrial city of Tangshan in Hebei Province, China. Like the Shaanxi earthquake 420 years before it, it struck while the population was asleep. The city of Tangshan had a population of approximately 1 million people. Within 23 seconds of the earthquake's onset, 93% of the city's residential buildings had collapsed. Not damaged, collapsed. The speed and totality of the structural failure was the result of construction standards that had not accounted for seismic risk. Buildings built as if the ground would never move. The official death toll announced by the Chinese government was 242,000 people. Later estimates, including Chinese government revisions, placed the number at between 242,000 and 655,000. The uncertainty reflects the scale of the event and the political context. China, in 1976, was in the final months of the Mao Zedong era, and the government was reluctant to acknowledge the full scale of the disaster. Among the dead were entire families who died in their beds. Rescue workers who arrived in the hours after the earthquake found not rubble with survivors in it, but compressed layers of concrete and brick with the shapes of rooms still visible. The furniture, the bedding, the ordinary objects of daily life, crushed flat. The earthquake struck at the end of a shift cycle for Tangshan's coal mines. Approximately 10,000 miners were underground at the time of the earthquake. Many survived the initial shaking because they were below the surface. They emerged to find the city above them no longer existed. Haiti earthquake, 2010. On January 12, 2010 at 4:53 p.m., a magnitude 7.0 earthquake struck Haiti approximately 25 kilometers southwest of the capital city Port-au-Prince. The earthquake lasted approximately 35 seconds. The death toll from the Haiti earthquake is estimated at between 100,000 and 316,000 people. The Haitian government's official figure was 316,000. The United States government's estimate was approximately 100,000. The true number has never been agreed upon. It is the deadliest earthquake in the Western Hemisphere in recorded history. The construction of Port-au-Prince was the primary cause of the catastrophic death toll. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Building codes existed on paper, but were not enforced. The majority of residential and commercial buildings in Port-au-Prince were constructed without engineering oversight, without reinforced concrete, and without seismic design consideration of any kind. When the earthquake struck, the buildings did not crack or partially collapse. They pancaked. Each floor fell directly onto the floor below it, compressing every space in which a person might have survived. The National Palace, the seat of the Haitian government, collapsed. The headquarters of the United Nations Stabilization Mission in Haiti collapsed, killing 96 UN personnel, including the mission chief. The Port-au-Prince Cathedral collapsed. Schools collapsed while children were still inside them. Hospitals collapsed while patients were being treated. Rescue teams from 30 countries arrived in the days following the earthquake. They found a city in which the infrastructure required to support a rescue operation, roads, communications, airports, had itself been destroyed by the earthquake. The largest rescue operation in the Western Hemisphere operated in conditions of near-total infrastructure collapse. The last survivor pulled from the rubble was extracted 27 days after the earthquake. His name was Evan Munsey. He was 28 years old. He had survived by drinking motor oil and soda to stay alive in a collapsed grocery store. Tohoku earthquake and tsunami, Japan, 2011. On March 11, 2011, at 2:46 p.m., a magnitude 9.0 earthquake struck 70 kilometers off the Pacific coast of the Tohoku region of Japan. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan, and the fourth most powerful earthquake recorded anywhere in the world since modern seismic measurement began. The earthquake itself caused significant damage along the Japanese coast. But the earthquake was not the primary killer. The tsunami it generated was. The earthquake displaced the seafloor over an area hundreds of kilometers long, pushing an enormous column of water upward. The resulting tsunami reached the Japanese coastline in places within 15 to 30 minutes of the earthquake. The wave heights at the coast exceeded 40 meters, 130 feet, in some locations. The town of Miyako recorded a run-up height of 40.5 meters, the highest tsunami run-up ever recorded in Japan. The town of Rikuzen-Takata was almost entirely destroyed. A forest of 70,000 pine trees that had stood on the coastline for centuries was swept away. One tree survived. It became known as the Miracle Pine. Okawa Elementary School in Ishinomaki City became the site of one of the most documented tragedies of the disaster. 74 of the school's 108 students died in the tsunami. The school was 4 kilometers from the ocean. Teachers had delayed evacuation for 51 minutes after the earthquake, debating where to take the children. When the decision was finally made to move to higher ground, the tsunami arrived before the children could reach safety. 10 teachers died alongside their students. The school principal was away from the school that day and survived. 15,897 people died in the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. 2,533 people remain missing. The earthquake also triggered the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, 3 reactor meltdowns at a coastal nuclear plant that had been struck by the tsunami. The nuclear disaster produced no direct deaths from radiation in the immediate term, but caused the evacuation of approximately 154,000 people, many of whom have never returned to their homes. The numbers, since 1900 earthquakes, have killed approximately 2.3 million people globally. The 5 events in this video alone account for more than 1 million of those deaths. And the Shaanxi earthquake of 1556, which occurred 344 years before modern seismic recording began, accounts for 830,000 more. The pattern across every earthquake in this video is identical. The earthquake shakes the ground, the buildings fall, the people inside the buildings die in numbers that reflect not the magnitude of the earthquake but the quality of the construction. Japan, one of the most seismically active countries on Earth, lost fewer than 16,000 people in a magnitude 9.0 earthquake because its buildings were built to survive ground movement. Haiti lost between 100,000 and 316,000 people in a magnitude 7.0 earthquake, a weaker event because its buildings were not. The ground moves. The buildings decide who lives and who dies. The buildings were built by human beings who made decisions about cost, about standards, about enforcement, and about whether the ground beneath them would ever move. In every earthquake in this video, some of those decisions were wrong. The ground did not care about the decisions. It moved anyway. If you found this video useful, subscribe for more and leave your suggestions for the next video in the comments.